This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
As we prepare for Parshas Vayechi, the Gemara tells us in Masechta Tainis on Daf Hey Amud Beis, Rav Nachman, Rav Yitzchak, Havayasi B'Sudasa, Rav Nachman, Rav Yitzchak, they were eating a Suda. Amar le Rav Nachman, Rav Yitzchak. Rav Nachman says to Rav Yitzchak, Leima Mar Milsa. Nu Zog Epis. Tell me something. Amar le, so Rav Yitzchak says back, Hachi Amar Rav Yochanan, we don't talk while we eat. Ein Masichin B'Suda. You're not allowed to talk while you're eating. Shema Yakdim Kana Leveshet. The food might go down the wrong pipe. V'yavo de Sakana, and it could be dangerous. So don't ask me to talk now. I'll let you know when to talk. And that's the way it works over here also. We'll let you know, right? Basar the Sod, after they ate, Amar le, Hachi Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yitzchak said, this is what Rabbi Yochanan said. You want to hear something Gavaldik? Yaakov Avinu loimix. Yaakov Avinu never died. Frek, Rav Nachman, Azoy, Yaakov Avinu loimix. Amar le, V'chi b'chdi, Saftu Saftanaya. For nothing, the eulogizers eulogized him. V'chantu Chantaya. And the embalmers embalmed him. So he didn't die. So what, they put him 6 feet under for? Amar le. So Yitzchak says back, what are you talking about? Mikrani Dorish, I darshan a pasuk. Shenamar, the pasuk says, V'yata al tira avdi Yaakov, and you do not be afraid, my servant Yaakov. No, Hashem says Hashem. V'al techas Yisrael, do not be afraid. Ki hineni Moshiach meirachoik, I will save you from far. V'yazaracha me'eretz shivyam, and your descendants from the land of captivity. Makish hulazaroi, compares him to his children. Ma zaroi b'chaim, just like Klal Yisrael is alive, afhu b'chaim, so too Yaakov Avinu is alive. So the Gemara is making an astounding statement. Yaakov Avinu lo imes. Yaakov Avinu never died, and in fact, Tosfos says it's a meduyik in the pasuk, because if you look in Vayechi Mem Tes Lamed Gimel number 2, it says Vayechal Yaakov l'tzaves. The son of Yaakov finished commanding his children. Vayesov raglo v'lamita. He gathers his feet into the bed. Vayigva, and he expired by Yosef Elamav. But what does it not say? It doesn't say Vayamas. It says Tosfos v'chein mashma d'chsev vayigva v'lo yiksev Vayamas. So what we have over here is a major piece of the Alshich HaKadosh of Moshe Alshich, one of the all-time great darshanim. And by the way, even though he was a great darshan, he devoted the majority of his time to learning Shas and Poskim. He only, I think, spent 1 day a week, Erev Shabbos, preparing for his drashas. And even though the majority of his time was on Shas and Poskim, what he has become known as is one of the greatest all-time darshanim. The Alshich says one simple question. The Gemara said Yaakov didn't die. So Rav Nachman asked, what do you mean he didn't die? But they eulogized him, they embalmed him, and they buried him. So what's the answer? Mikra ani doirish, I darshan a pasuk. Go take your drasha and shove it. What do you mean? Mikrani doiresh. But the reality is that they buried him and they eulogized him and they embalmed him. So what's the response? Mikrani doiresh. Yeah? Frek the Alshich HaKadosh. Halo yikshe ma meishiv lo al koshasa ba'amra mikrani doiresh. What's the answer? Mikrani doirish. V'chialshu doirish mikra tizvata akusha. Just because you darshan something, that doesn't answer the question. Instead of saying, no, he didn't die, be mavato your drasha. You obviously don't know how to darshan. V'yadarabba tizvata hadrasha hi. You have a kasha. I'm telling you the reality is they put him 6 feet under. So you have a drasha? You're asking a kasha from your drasha?
Number 2, what does it mean?
He was gathered to his people.
What does expired? By Yigva, he expired.
Like, you know, on your milk?
Yeah. Expiration date.
You know, on your milk? It means he ended. He ended.
He ended?
He became a chayla.
The Chlau Rabbi say,
Speaking?
the Gemara tells us, in the Masechta Brachos, that there's a feature that all tzaddikim have, is tzaddikim shebemisasan nikru chayim. That tzaddikim, when they're dead, they're called alive. So what was unique about Yaakov Avinu more than any other tzaddik? What was unique about Yaakov more than any other tzaddik? All tzaddikim are nikru chayim. Okay. Now look at number 6. The psukim say Vayechi Yaakov v'yeretz Mitzrayim shva'asrei shana. Yaakov lived 17 years, and the years of his life 7 years and 140. And then the next pasuk says, "Vayikrevu Yimei Yisrael Lamos." Wait a second, I thought Yaakov Avinu didn't die. Your Tosis is bringing a raya. I'll bring you a raya, he didn't die because it just says Vayikva, Vayosef. Yeah, but this pasuk says Vayikrevu Yimei Yisrael Lamos. And if you look at number 8, Vayomer Yisrael El Yosef Hine Anoichi Meis. You know what mace means? Doesn't mean expired. Yeah. So very nice. It says Vayamas. It doesn't say Vayamas on pasuk Perak Mem Tes Pasuk Lamed Gimel, but it does sure say it. Mem Zayin Chav Tes Mem Ches Chav Aleph. And Bechlal, the Alshich wants to know, why in the beginning of Parshas Vayechi, in the first pasuk it says Vayechi Yaakov v'yeretz Mitzrayim, and in the next pasuk it says Vayikrevu Yimei Yisrael Lamos. Why are we changing his name? Another interesting point is we know when they carried the coffin of Yaakov Avinu, it says Vayisu Oisai Banav, and not B'nei Banav.
Rashi did though.
So says Rashi, why his sons are not his grandchildren? Because this is what he commanded them. No Egyptian could carry my coffin, and none of your children, only you. And he said he gave them designated places. 3 on the east, to all 3 on the west, 3 in the north, 3 in the south. The way they camped, Lidigleim, Levi didn't carry, because Levi used to carry the Aron, and Yosef was the Melech, and therefore Menashe and Ephraim took their places. And this is what it means when it talks about the Degalim, Ish al Digloi, Bi-Oisais, according to the Ois that Yaakov Avinu assigned them. Why exactly? What was so special that they had to carry Yaakov Avinu Lidigleim according to the way that they would travel in the Midbar? Okay, look at number 11. Yaakov Avinu isn't there anymore. I'm not going to say mace, I'm not going to say Vayigva, but he ain't there. Vayipol Yosef al pnei aviv, Vayev golav, Vayishaklai. Vayitzav Yosef es avadav es haroifim. He commanded his servants and the roifim. Lachnoid es aviv. What's es avadav? Es haroifim. Well, who are these 2 different guys? The avadav, the roifim. And then it says Vayachantu haroifim. Why does it say Vayachantu haroifim? There's something called a pronoun. Right? If let's say I say, Yankel Baelish came to the Shiur today. Yankel Baelish is learning very well. So I could just say, Yankel Baelish came to the Shiur. He is learning very well. I don't have to say his name every time. So we already mentioned the roifim. Why does it have to say Vayachantu haroifim es Yisrael? It should say Vayachantu oisam.
Yeah,
or it's
you have two over there. So
okay. Well,
dangling.
we should say we know who it's and it should say Vayachantu es Yisrael. They embalmed Yaakov. And Bechlal, why does it have to say Yisrael? Who else did they embalm? A different guy.
Why Yisrael, not Yaakov?
Okay, why Yisrael? And it could say, by the way, it could say Vayachantu Oisai. So it comes along with the Alshich HaKadosh. And Bechlal, we have to understand what it means. Yaakov Avinu Loi Meis. What does that mean? What does it mean? The Alshich makes a spectacular diak. And that is that every time it talks about Yaakov Avinu, it says Vayigva, Vayeyosef. It skirts around the word Misa. But it does say Misa by Yisrael. Vayikrevu Yimei Yisrael Lamos. Vayomer Yisrael El Yosef Hine Anoichi Meis. So by Yisrael it does say Meis, and by Yaakov it doesn't say Meis. So the Alshich says some people want to say, oh, you see from here that if Yisrael died and Yaakov didn't die, Yaakov is greater than Yisrael because Yaakov didn't die and Yisrael did. Even though we tend to think just the opposite. Yisrael is a higher madrega than Yaakov. So it says the Alshich, he believes that the madrega of Yisrael is higher than Yaakov, and therefore he suggests the following. I'll tell you outside, then we'll take a look inside. And that is, Yaakov Avinu did not have a split personality, he was one person. He had two names, sometimes Yaakov, sometimes Yisrael. The element, the dimension of Yisrael, the dimension of his neshama of Yisrael was a much higher level than the dimension of Yaakov. The dimension of Yisrael died like every other human being who ever walked on the face of this earth, that when, after 120 years, their neshama leaves the body. Yeah? Yisrael died. But the element of Yaakov, that remained in his guf. That remained in his guf. That means like this. Let's say a person goes to sleep. Are they alive? They're alive. Their nefesh is in the body. Their ruach is in the body. And so is their neshama. It's all there. Maybe some part of the neshama goes up, but it's all there. So why isn't he talking? Why isn't he thinking? The answer is laying dormant right now. It's not active. But he's alive. Let's say someone faints. So someone faints. Are they dead? They're not dead. They're alive. Just their koichos lay dormant. All tzaddikim la'achar 110 shana, their neshama goes up, their ruach goes up. There is some level of nefesh that remains in their body that is not apparent to the eye. That still, it lays dormant in the guf. Yaakov Avinu, on the other hand, all three levels of him remain dormant in his guf, la'achar 110. His nefesh, his ruach, and his neshama. So why? Does that mean when I'm going to go to Wasserman's after the Shiur, I'm going to see Yaakov Avinu shopping? He's not going to be there. Anyway, he would go to no. He's in the kever, no question. When we say Yaakov loy meis, it just means that all of his koichos, his nefesh, his ruach, and his neshama lay dormant in his guf, lay connected guf. Every tzaddik, the nefesh is there to some extent. By Yaakov Avinu, all three levels are there. But what's not there is Yisrael. Yisrael meis. Yisrael, the element of Yisrael, that went on. The element of Yaakov, that's why it's called Yaakov Avinu. The way he was when he became Avinu, that's still connected to his guf. Okay, let's take a look in number 14, very quickly. Let us try to investigate this. Nisara Lashon Amikra. Let us look carefully at the language of the psukim. Ki alo yipale, it is a wonder. Ki kol ha'amokim asher yasker hamisa liYaakov. Anytime it says Misa by Yaakov, b'shem Yisrael Yechaneu, he's called Yisrael. Uva'amokim asher yasker gevia va'asifa. Whenever it says to expire, he gathered his legs. B'li askaras malas, without mentioning death, b'shem Yaakov Yechaneu, he's called Yaakov. For example, Vayemer Yisrael Amusa Hapam. Amusa. Vayemer Yisrael Yosef Hinei Anochi Meis. Vayikvu Yimei Yisrael Amos. But by Yaakov it only says Gevia. Vayigva. Says the Alshich. Because of this question, there was a very wise man who tried to say that the dimension of Yaakov is greater than Yisrael, because we see Yaakov Lemeis, Yisrael was Meis. Says the Alshich, I disagree. Look at the next paragraph. The element of Yisrael is a higher element. It gave more or, it gave more light. It was much more distinguished. Look on the fourth line in the second paragraph. Hine yadua, it is known. Ki geder misa husila kanefesh me'aguf. The concept of death is when the soul, the nefesh, leaves the guf. For Oimra, and what it means to say is, the element of his soul that was added to him when he was called Yisrael, that is what was left. That is why it says Misa. The element of Yisrael was nistalik mimenu legamri, it left him completely. The Alkain kol hamokim asher yasker Misa. That is why anywhere in the Torah where it says Misa, he's called Yisrael. Ach bevechinas Yaakov, says the Alshich, the level of Yaakov, who hagadar asher hayu by mitchila, the level that he had from a beginning, loy nistalik, that never left. It just expired. Kemi shenis alef, like someone who faints. The level of Yisrael departed. The level of Yaakov was just not active, but it was there. Sha'adayin kol koichos nafshay v'ruchay v'nishmasay deveikim by be'etzim. All of his faculties, faculty of nefesh, faculty of ruach, faculty of neshama was still clinging to him. They remained dormant. That's why by Yaakov it just says Vayigva, Vayeyasef. As opposed to, look at number 13, by Yitzchak, it says Vayigva, Vayamos. Yitzchak Avinu died. And therefore, when Chazal say Yaakov Avinu loimes, the level of Yaakov, when he was Avinu, when he gave birth to us, when he became our father, before he became Yisrael, that's loimes. The Alshich says, other tzaddikim are also called loimes. They're called Yeshenei Afar, right? We say, maybe Gael, maybe, we say, excuse me. We say, what do you mean Yeshenim? They're dead? No, they're not dead, the tzaddikim. But, for example, Rabbi used to come home to make Kiddush, and Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon ruled over Klal Yisrael for 22 years after his demise, and Rav Acha bar Yoshia spoke with Rav Nachman from his kever. Says the Alshich, all these individuals, they were dead. The only thing they had was they had the koyach of the nefesh. They did not have the ruach, they did not have the neshama. But Yaakov Avinu was more than that. He had all of the above. And therefore, you know what else he had? The avos, when they were alive, were what? The merkava lashchina, vayal Hashem me al Avraham. So therefore, as they're carrying Yaakov to Mitzrayim, what else is in that Aron? The Shechina. So it's like carrying the Aron in the Midbar. So they had to carry it according to the Degalim. What do you mean? This is a mess. This is not a mess. Yaakov Avinu was alive completely. He had nefesh, he had ruach neshama. So why isn't he talking? Like, it's the same way people don't talk when they faint. Same thing. Okay?
What happened once he was buried?
Nothing. Same thing. Same thing. He was buried. All his koichos remain dormant. The ruach, the nefesh, the neshama. So now the issue is, well, what about the embalming? Because how does the embalming process work? Remember we once read an article here? What was it called? Behind the formaldehyde curtain. Yeah? How do they embalm? They remove the internal organs. Now, once they remove the internal organ, it's hard to say Yaakov Avinu had a nefesh, ruach, and neshama. The blood is out. Ki dam hu nefesh, yeah? So comes the Alshich, he has a very clever way to deal with this. In order to embalm someone, you need two kinds of people. You need the avodim to remove the internal organs, and you need the roifim to put the chemicals and spices. Yosef sees Yaakov Avinu is not there anymore. He sees, the flat line. So he figures, he died like everyone else. He called the avodim to remove the internals, and he called the roifim to... But then he realizes the Shekhinah is still there, and he realizes he didn't die like everyone else, and that his nefesh was there. So he said, cut the avodim, forget the avodim. We're not removing his internals. They did not remove the internal organ. They just embalmed the outside. Says look at number 15. There's the Alshich. There's actually two pieces in the Alshich. Later on in the Parsha, the Alshich says, Achine Yosef chashav ki meis b'derech kol haaretz. Yosef thought that he died like everyone else. Vayitzav lachnoid oisai, and he commanded to embalm him. V'inei derech ha'olam, it is the way of the world. She'avdei ha'melech she'amos, that when the servants of the king die, yoitziu krova v'yirchatzim b'mayim, they take out the innards, they wash them, and then the doctors come in and embalm. Amar, so therefore the pasuk says, kitziva es avadav v'gam es haroifim lachnoid. Shehu avadav, to open up his beten, to wash the innards and remove them. But afterwards, he only called es haroifim lachnoid, but he did not call the avodim. Why? Because he realized that Yaakov was not meis mamish. Yaakov Avinu loy meis, and therefore they didn't touch him. That's why the pasuk says, look carefully, Vayachan to haroifim es Yisrael. Why does it say es Yisrael? It should say they embalmed oisai. Es Yisrael means es bala rabbis. Normally when you embalm, you just balm the shell. Es Yisrael includes they embalmed his entire guf. His entire guf was still intact. Okay, that's
speaking very casually about embalming, but about embalming we know is not an accepted practice.
No. you're not allowed to do it. So how is Yosef allowed to do it?
Yeah.
Because he had to hold him in Mitzrayim first. And then he had to take him, and then had that whole extended period. He was putrefied.
But still, it's not
No, he's not.
About 100 days before.
I mean, how could... bottom line is he didn't embalm him. The problem with embalming is... to remove the innards. But bottom line is he didn't. The question is, how was he considering that possibility? It's a good question.
good.
What? Yosef later on. They were brought out.
Oh, so why is it called Atzmos Yosef? You mean it's more than Atzmos. It was Basar and Dam also.
Well, at that time, they already...
But, I mean...
They didn't embalm him.
or whatever.
But I mean, Pharaoh's still there, so why wouldn't Yosef still? I mean,
Embalming was an accepted practice among them.
no, he's what are you asking? Why are they called Atzmos Yosef if his body was still?
Was he embalmed?
He was embalmed, yeah.
But he was under the water something, no? That's where the motion...
Yeah, but they got him out. So what happened? The body disintegrated. If you look in the Shach al Torah, he addresses this.
Yeah.
Why he's called Atzmos if he was more than that. So therefore, he says like this. If this is the case, if Yosef realized that Yaakov didn't die, why did he command the embalmers to embalm him? The answer is, Yosef wanted everyone to think that he died, because if they wouldn't have thought he died, they would worship him. So he said, Avadim, everything's under control, we took care of everything already. He called in the Chanutim, and the Chanutim embalmed him, and they cried for Yaakov instead of worshipping him, and therefore Yaakov Avinu was never made into the deity that Yosef thought could happen. Okay? So this is...
I wonder, he was sworn to take him out.
Yeah, but the question, why did he call the Chanutim? The answer is because Yosef wanted the people to think that he actually died. So this is how the Alshich learns Yaakov Avinu loy meis. The element of Yisrael was meis. The element of Yaakov, it doesn't mean he's walking and talking. It just means all the faculties of the soul, the nefesh, ruach, neshama, cling to him. They lay dormant and they're still there. Ma anu b'chaim, just like we're alive, so too afhu b'chaim. Okay, this concludes the first shiur in preparation of Parshas Vayechi.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.